is a Wednesday night, and I have not slept yet today. Yesterday was just really rough. I made an early video where I was going to talk about scammers. I'm still going to do that, but it may take a day or two. Yesterday was bad. Like I said, I went swimming in the ocean and was not able to take a shower afterwards. I got here and the electricity, the water was off, so I couldn't shower. So I had to take one of those sink baths and then go on my merry way because my husband had ruined his computer. We had to go buy him a new one at Costco. I don't even want to go into what that was, but it was a total S show. So tomorrow we got to go back and return the one he bought. I told him, I said, you're not going to be happy with that processor. And I was right. Ha ha, I was right. Those of you who've been married a long time know how satisfying it is when your spouse admits you were right. So there's that. So I want to get that out of the way and say, I apologize for that, for listing my original posting and then showing up late and then a couple minutes and then dashing on my merry way. So today, because yesterday was such a cluster, I was like dragging. So what I did today was 50,000 piles of laundry and I watched television. I rewatched Tiger King #2, or at least some of the episodes of it. And I came up with some things that I'd missed the first time around altogether. So I want to talk about that in a second. As you can see, I haven't even made up my bed. I've got sheets in the washer and I've got pork here. Okay, if you don't know who I am, I'm Suzanne Finkelmeyer. I used to write a column called No Longer Quivering at Pathos. It was about the quiverful evangelical movement. Now I do my own thing. And I just have to say, hit subscribe, like, whatever. And don't believe anybody I'm going to talk about. And these are just my opinions. Now, my opinions on Costa Rica and Costa Rican culture have played a deal in me. Watch her. She's going to jump up there. She's going to go sleep on top of the top of my closet. No, she's going back. So I watched Tiger King with the rescue guys when it first happened. Hey, Kentucky girl. I was not able to get it at first anywhere but the pirate channels because Costa Rica, for a long time, you could not get Netflix or Hulu here. Now, I could fool Hulu with my VPN and get in it anyway. Netflix was not even possible. So recently they started doing Netflix here and I signed up because I was tired of dealing with the burnout BS of using Fire Sticks and every year having to replace the 3 Fire Sticks in the house. So I just signed up for this and I used my smart TVs. So I kept saying I have to rewatch the second season of Tiger King because they had a segment where they were in Costa Rica looking for Don Lewis, who is Carole Baskin's missing husband. Oh, second or third husband. I don't know what number he was, but he was not her first. Don Lewis disappeared. And I want to say it was 1994. He disappeared. And he had told Carole he was moving to Costa Rica. He was making a lot of arrangements. He owned a large piece of Costa Rican property in a place called Bagaces, which is near here. Bagaces is like a little farming community south of Liberia. I'm running to Liberia yesterday. I'm going tomorrow. So it's about an hour away, maybe. And Bagaces is another 10 minutes or so past that. We go there for the Llano de Cortez Catarata, the waterfall. We go swim in the waterfall there. That's one of our things we like to do. Did the first time through, very interested because of the Costa Rica angle, the fact that they had boots on the ground, they were talking to Costa Ricans. And knowing Costa Rican culture, I was really extremely interested in a lot of what was going on with these things because of I've been here more than 5 years, almost 6 at this point. And you pick up on the fact that the culture is very different than the US. It kind of reminds me of small town, southern US. People have a slower pace of life here. They're more grateful, but they also gossip like hell. So when Carole Baskins tried to claim that he was here, I've always been extremely doubtful of that claim because of the fact that Costa Ricans gossip their ass off big time. And most of the time it's harmless, like the Costa Ricans are very harmless in what they talk about. So we're not talking so and so's having an affair. We're not talking that kind of gossip. It's more like when we bought this house, every Tico in the little villa rolled past our gates and staring. That sort of thing. It's like gringos moved into that house. Yeah, we did. A gringo and a gringa. We all moved in. So it's harmless small town stuff every time I've seen it. But it's there. And something as big as a gringo moving to Bagaces with that amount of land, talking about bringing animals and bringing tons of money and stuff, that is gonna turn a few heads. Okay, I gotta correct myself with that date. Don Lewis didn't disappear until 1997. Okay. And knowing Tico culture and seeing finally, I got to see the episode with the guy who was the handyman on Don's property, and I finally got a full translation of what he said. My Spanish is pretty good, but his way of speaking is not good. The handyman is from Nicaragua, so he has kind of a different accent than Tico's that I'm used to listening to here. There are a ton of Nicaraguans here. Like, in the US for many years, if there was a job that you couldn't get a white American to do, a Mexican or Hispanic would take the job. It's the same way here, but it's Nicaraguans coming to take the jobs that the Ticos don't want to do. So my only problem with them, I have nothing against them. The Nicaraguans are wonderful people. They're very family oriented. They're very sweet, the ones that I know, and they'll help you if they can. So this guy was taking care of his property. I believe he was a Nicaraguan, just going by the accent, because they're very hard to understand compared to Costa Ricans. So I watched that, and Don Lewis was a lot of things. He was not a stupid guy. If he had moved to Costa Rica to take over, like Carole is claiming, he would not let his huge investment of that much property in the Bagaces area sitting idle all these years. So I dispute her assertions that he's here. Even though she claims that Homeland Security told her he was here, he may have been here once or twice. Well, not once or twice, maybe even more, because the other guy who had worked for him that spoke English talked about Don going back and forth many times through the years, and about Don bringing big boxes full of money, cash money, underneath a bunch of old clothes, which I can see him doing that from everything I've heard about Don. I can see him trying to circumvent the government here, because the government here is hell on you bringing in money if you are not a Costa Rican. And I understand why that is. It's because for a long time they were used to launder drug money. And then you got to the south, you got Panama, which once upon a time was the hangout spot of Manuel Noriega, which he was the strong man running the place. And he supposedly was laundering drug money. There was a story that went around, I guess about 91 or so, maybe 92, where they were alleging that Manuel Noriega approached Jimmy Swaggart of Swaggart Ministries to launder money. And what went down and who laundered what, I don't know, but I remember that very clearly. I just don't remember all the circumstances of it, because I thought at the time, I was like, oh, Brother Jimmy, don't do that. It's going to come back and bite you on the ass. So something struck me particularly funny rewatching this whole thing with Carole. If you watched what Carole said, she said the issue with the guns especially, she was talking about the large amount of guns and how the guns were, she said that, what's that guy's name? Kenny, who was working for them, that Kenny had loaded the guns up for Costa Rica for Don's barge shipment the next day. First of all, it's not a barge shipment. You usually will load a couple of containers, and the containers are taken away on a container ship. That is how it goes to here from Florida and other places. That's just standard shipping. If you move down here from anywhere in the US, they're going to truck your belongings in a shipping container, maybe with other people's belongings in a shipping container. They're going to load that shipping container in either like a port of New Orleans, port of Miami, over in Los Angeles. They're going to load those onto a container ship somewhere in the southern half of the US that has deep water harbors, and they're going to take that through. There's just one problem. When Don Lewis disappeared in 1997, strict gun laws were already in place in Costa Rica because Costa Rica was attempting to be a second world, leading to a first world nation. They were trying to combat the drug traffic by not allowing weapons in easily, by not laundering money, any of that. So they started enacting some pretty stiff rules about that. Okay, in 1994, that's where I picked up that 1994, Costa Rica picked up strong gun laws. They enacted them at that time, particularly handguns. It was an attempt to control street guns, guns without permits. And I've seen this happen where gringos have brought guns over in their shipping containers. And you know what happens since that rule in 1994? And this would have been in place for 1997 too. The Costa Rican government seizes the guns the second they hit the impuesto. They don't let you bring them in. The only way you would be allowed to bring in a gun is if you came to Costa Rica, you signed up to be a resident, you went ahead and you applied to carry. You applied to have a gun here. And hey, Christine, and to have a gun here, it's quite the process. It's quite expensive. They make you take a psychological exam, all sorts of things. You have to jump through some major hoops and you have to pay some major money. Because I know some gringos, like I said, in Puesto took their guns right away, and away they went. And there's no way to argue with that. There are certain things you just can't import. Guns are one of them. But if you have a gun permit from the nation of Costa Rica, then I don't know what the import rules are, but they're different if you actually have gone through the trouble to go ahead and sign up for that. So for Carole Baskin to say that Jeff had the guns to package them, to put them on the container ship for Costa Rica is wrong on every level. Just wrong. There's no way that could take place because of the strict gun laws here. We don't need gun control here because the laws on guns are really hard. And if he'd have brought them in illegally, that's prison time here. Gringo, Tica, whatever. If you're a Tico or a Gringo and you're caught with an unlicensed gun, it is a major thing. So the story that Carole Baskin is telling about the guns being ready for shipping is BS. Now, Jeff's ex-wife said that she saw the guns. The guns were in the house, and that during an altercation with her husband, Kenny, that the cops, when she called them, showed up and they seized all the guns. So they're gone now. But I just wanted to say Carole Baskin is a liar. She was lying about that. She was lying her rear end off about those guns because there was no way in hell that Costa Rica would have let him import them. Sadly, people wanting to own guns here got caught in the COVID Rona too, like those of us that were trying to get our residency. At some point, they just kicked all the applications out of the system. And they did that again after we had a hack here of the government website. So it's kind of a pain in the ass that they do it like that. But I understand it's their country. They want to make sure nobody's bringing guns here. They want to make sure that if you become a resident here, that you don't have a record and you can show that you can support yourself and you have documentation to who you are. So that's really all I wanted to say, is that she's lying her ass off. Because Costa Rica is such a small place that everybody knows each other in the various communities, Don is not in Bagaces. Now, I don't know if he's in San Jose either, because the guy was helping him with stuff, believes that he met a bad end here. I don't believe that. I think that everything I'm seeing tells me that something happened before that. So there you have it, my Tiger King analysis after rewatching that crap. I also wanted to talk a little bit about a surprising thing yesterday. Yesterday, a whole bunch of new documents dropped in the 7M case against the troll. So I'm sitting in Costco with my iPad looking at it like this and reading documents yesterday afternoon and laughing because some of the things that have come from her attorney are just utterly ridiculous. And I don't see how it's ever going to play right with the judge. Some of the things that were said were just ridiculous. But the thing that jumped out at me that I want to discuss just a tiny bit is 7M is now claiming they have proof that she is working in conjunction with Netflix. Hey, American Princess. There was so much shade in those documents. I know. I feel like I need an umbrella or some kind of light thing. So there was so much shade in those documents. Those documents were a hot freaking mess. I read through them yesterday. I was laughing. You know, my husband doesn't like me talking about the trolls. So I have to be careful that I don't become too obsessional and I don't talk about her a lot. But reading those documents, once 7M said they had proof that she was coordinating with Netflix and they're working on this documentary, I was like, yes. Because one of the things she's bragged about quite openly is she's laughed and said, well, when Discovery happens, we're going to ask for all kinds of things, and I'm going to pass them off to Netflix, to the documentary producers. Now 7M knows that, and I don't know what they're going to do with that information, but it ain't going to be good. I don't hold out a whole lot of hope for her in this because you don't piss off the judge. And reading all those documents, I'm reading through this and going, the judge is not stupid. Her lawyer misspelled the judge's name on a bunch of paperwork. So I just don't even know what to think. It's like, oh my gosh, last night I wanted to come in here last night and talk about it. But it took forever to get my husband a computer and it turned out not to be the right one. So I was scrambling, trying to force a Celeron processor computer to download Windows 10, which was not happening. It didn't. So I didn't get a chance to come on here last night and talk about it. I have to wonder if she's really working with Netflix or did she write all those documents herself? Christine, I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't doubt that somebody has contacted her and she's had a lot of contact with him and talked back and forth. Now, how much more than that, I don't know. So I was really surprised. I was like, shocked Pikachu face when 7M said they had proof that she was working with Netflix on this stuff. I was like, jaw drop, because for her to talk about it is one thing. For it to actually be true is an entirely different ball of wax. And it's not unheard of that documentarians contact a lot of people over these things because they do. Like I said, I filmed like 5 of them myself, and so far I've ended up on the cutting room floor, and I'm just as fine with that. I don't have to be quoted. I just all the documentarians were the ones that twisted my arm to write the book because every time I would tell my crazier stories, they would be the ones with the shocked Pikachu face. So knowing that she was working with them in some capacity is not entirely unheard of. So I'm curious to see what happens next. One of the things that she did that somebody pointed out, and they had contact with somebody in Shinn's camp, was that she had reposted a bunch of stuff by one of Robert Shinn's sons. I'm not going to say which one, who struggles with mental illness. He was having a manic episode. She was taking everything kind of unhinged, he was saying, and reposting it, and with his name and everything, and pictures and whatever. And somebody in the Shinn camp apparently tried to reach out and say, hey, could you please remove that stuff? The person who posted them had removed all of that. Christine, no, let's talk about that in a minute. So this is not going to play out well for her. I'm sure they're going to use that in the lawsuit too. You don't do that to people who are struggling with their mental health. You just don't do that. To me, that is the lowest form of low. And I just couldn't believe it. I can't believe it's still up, even though she has been asked to take it down. And I want to say I read something where somebody said that a request went through the lawyers, but I'm not 100% sure of that. But this is somebody that is ignored 4 cease and desist from Tati Westbrook, so there's no telling what she has ignored. Christine, you're right. She has no morals. Christine, I didn't see about Todd and Julie, but I am not surprised. I like Todd. I know what it's like to get tangled up with the IRS because something goes haywire. I've had that happen to myself. Years and years ago, I had a broker that reported a different amount of income than I did, and they reported something different to me. What I had showed the costs of what was going on, and it was reinvested. What they sent the IRS did not show cost of stocks. It did not show that it had been reinvested. So when the IRS kept contacting me and saying, we need you to amend your return because it's not right over your stocks and bonds. And I kept saying, now, wait a minute. And I kept going over the information I had again and again and again. And this drug on for 6, 8, 9 months before I finally figured out. I'm going to give you a pro tip here. Every district has an IRS help office, every district. And you can show up there, get a little ticket, those little numbered tickets that says you are now 9,221. And eventually they will get to you. And you can sit there with an IRS agent and line by line go through it, and they'll tell you what's wrong with it, because the paperwork they were sending me was so incredibly vague that I couldn't figure out what they were talking about. And once I talked to the IRS agents, the very helpful, wonderful guys at this place in Fredericksburg, Virginia, I was able to say, okay. And then I went back to the broker and said, why did you tell them this? And we figured out what happened. I filed an amended return. I had to write them a check for $40. They had to write me a check for $4,000. So it was all good in the end. It was all good. But I wasn't attempting to run away from it, like apparently they're alleging Todd and Julie tried to game the system. Now, I don't believe they're guilty just based on what I heard of the evidence and the fact that the IRS agent lied about overdue taxes, lied on the stand about it. I was really shocked that their case didn't get at least relooked at. Their sentencing hearing is the same day as the trolls. Oh my God, I hate to think about that day. They face between 10 and 22 years. I hope that they don't get much of a sentence at all. I've told Todd that I'm really sorry for that they're having this trouble at all. Because, like I said, had my own troubles with the IRS. I know what that's like. So I'm sure well, actually, no. I was going to say our troll will probably cover all this, but she can't. She can't. She can't. I hope they get a light sentence if they get anything. Personally, I hope they get the whole thing overturned and they get a new trial because the main witnesses they had against Todd and Julie were flawed. You don't give somebody that is the one who definitely forged documents and fake documents, you don't give them a get out of jail free card just to land somebody else. I feel like the IRS wants to make an example out of them. Now, I wish I still had some of the same contacts I had. I knew somebody pretty high up at the IRS who only went after celebrities. That was his big thing, but he liked rappers because he was racist. Racist guy. So I guess it depends on the judge and whether or not they want to make an example out of him. Christine, that may be exactly what's going on. They may want to make an example out of the Chrisleys and give them the maximum. But again, it doesn't stop the Chrisleys from turning around and filing to have their case overturned. They can keep doing that for quite some time. How many times have we seen murderers on death row file appeal after appeal after appeal and gum up the works for 10, 20 years before they finally ride old Sparky into eternity? It's quite a few times. And I would hate to see that because they seem like pretty decent people for the most. Well, I'm sure they will too. I just can't believe the stress of going through all that, how horrible that is for them. But at least the troll can't run her mouth about them. Thank God. Tender mercies, because you know that she would. Even though right now she is so incredibly focused on what's that guy's name? I don't know. The Cody, the guy who is the polygamist. She is just Cody centric. And that doesn't interest me at all. Now, love after lockup, that'd be a whole different ballgame. But it's pretty amazing the way some of these things, how these things play out. I never thought that they were going to find him guilty in the first place. From what I saw, it looked like they'd been set up to me. But then again, what do I know? I'm just some ignorant writer that doesn't understand the law and doesn't do anything about the law. It still makes me laugh, though, when I read the legal briefs of one Graham Martin. Oh, I have a sinking feeling she'll end up settling with 7N. I hope I'm wrong. Christine, I'm afraid that she will. But then again, knowing what I know about evangelical quiverful, I don't entirely see that. Instead, and I would have thought Todd Chrisley would have taken it all the way too, but seeing his problems, I can understand why he would settle. Because that would be like trying to use a nuclear weapon to take out a fly and ignoring the real problem, the serious thing. So he didn't need this hanging over him with her. But 7M, like I said, Fundytown never forgets. And when they file lawsuits and they're raising Cain about this one or that, the other, there is no settlement. And I think with everything she continues to do, every time she talks up to them, makes settlement less and less likely. Robert has deep pockets. If she settles, she might not be able to talk about them. I'm sure she can't. I'm sure that if they settle it all, that's going to be like one of the biggest requirements. You know, she has actually said so much stuff about she was going to grab Discovery. all these material and discovery and give them to the documentarians, which totally violates rules on discovery and lawsuits and things. Most of the time, you can't do that before it's settled. And she was asking for things that I have problems with her getting because I don't personally think that it would be provative of her case at all, like medical records. Why on earth would she want medical records? Don't get me wrong, I'm not a big Robert Shinn fan, but only because Robert Shinn is linked with some organizations that I know way too much about, and I know they border on CULTs. He has expressed admiration for Bethel Redding and Hillsong, and both of those places fit the high demand religious organization chart. Or if you were going to do the bite model, I think both of them probably do ring all the bells on that. So as soon as I discovered that Robert Shinn and Shekinah Church was linked with those things, it was like, oh hell no, and I blocked everybody and everything that had to do with that. I don't want any part of that crap. For me, watching Robert Shinn and her fight it out, it would be like you don't really care who wins at that point because you just want to see the battle going on. Actually, I do want him to win, but I'm not going to aid him in any way, shape, or form. That's never happening. I know various people who will likely be testifying for Shinn. And Christine, I know she has said that so many times. And she has been claiming that to me back when I knew her. She would say she didn't fear any lawsuit because discovery would hurt the other side more than would hurt her. I don't know. Custom ordering a BMW when you're facing that kind of lawsuit, it just seems to me to be like one of the most foolish moves. Refinancing your house to make 100% to 100% seems pretty stupid to me. Pull all the equity out, buying guitars left and right. Because what she's not considering is, okay, so they won't take your home, your first one, but they many times will seize possessions and sell them off to satisfy $1 million plus debt. So don't fall in love too much with that BMW. That might be on the chopping block, and your Toyota or whatever else you're rolling around in might be the only one you're allowed to keep. They might come in there and take all those guitars, even the kit guitars, and auction them off. They may leave her with 3 beans and a diaper for all we know. We don't know if she's found culpable. If they take her channel down, she's in big trouble. Then she will have to get a real job. Get a job, get a job, get a job. I worked. Get a job. I have a lot less sympathy for her screeching about her career. Well, I had a career writing, okay? This is my hobby. I am retired. But for her, it's a, quote, career. John, you could see them both losing. KJ losing the court case, 7M losing because KJ releases a discovery info regardless of what the court says. John, that could very clearly happen. I hope it doesn't. But I can see that happening too, particularly if they don't seal discovery, because they're asking for some pretty strict privacy rules on discovery, and there are a lot of good reasons why that could be. Hey, Chris. And I don't think that there's a lot of things that she's asking for that she has no business with. Like anything to do with the church. The church is not involved in this lawsuit at all. Even though, like I said, my basic quarrel with Robert Shinn is his church and some of the other churches that he approves of. I can't in good conscience support anybody that thinks that the healing theology of Bethel Redding is a good thing. It just is not. I've experienced it. I've lived through it. I've seen people die. There are bodies piling up behind that theology. YouTube channels usually last about 5 years. American Princess, I can understand why, from having, done this off and on. I started this because Pathos was pushing all of us to do this while we were writing there. If she ever releases any of the discovery, I'd be watching my back. Christina, it will bite her in the ass. In response to KJ asking for medical info, 7S him should ask for her to go a mental evaluation. They should also ask for a test to prove if she's taking drugs. They could do that too. If she wants to insist on that, they should be able to say that too. And say, hey, we want a mental evaluation and we want to test your blood and see if you're on drugs and alcohol, any of that. They should, John. But I don't think 7M could undergo that either. All I had to do was find out that they were involved with Bethel, and that was it. My old church was involved with Bethel, and I never fully bought into what Bethel was saying about Jesus took every illness to the cross when he died. It's by his stripes we're 100% healed. So if you don't get healed, they blame you for it. They'll say, well, you got a demon or you have a unconfessed sin in your life. They have 1,000 reasons for why you didn't get healed. And they all circle right back to you, okay? And the biggest thing that broke my idea about that at all, because I did sort of kind of believe a few of the things they were saying, was my husband. My husband and his many years depression that they told him was demonic, that they told him was this or that or the other. It was selfishness. It was all these different things. He tried everything. And I watched him for years try everything. You know what it was? He had a tumor on his parathyroid gland. A tumor was driving all this. In medical school, they say it's stones, bones, groans with psych overtones. And he was having all of those things. Remove the parathyroid gland, and guess what? His depression lifted. It wasn't demons. He didn't have unconfessed sin. It wasn't anything he'd done or thought or anything like that. He had a tumor. A tumor. So when that happened, it was like, yeah, up yours, Bethel. For me, that was like the dirty endings. Oh, they already know she likes her wine, likes a bottle of wine. Yep. Yeah, American Princess. That is my story. And that is a big part of why I'm writing my book, is because once those things started happening, it was like, that part in The Wizard of Oz where they pull back the curtain and instead of the great and powerful Oz, it's some little geek. It's some little geek pulling the levers, making it happen. It was kind of like that experience for me. And it's kind of funny because in the book, I have all these cultural references. And that was something I really had to undergo when I left, was catching up on culture and like rewatching this, seeing Married with Children for the first time, all of those things. A pastor on a power trip behind the curtain. Exactly, John. And it cracked any belief I had in how they were doing things. There was just no way. There was no way I would ever believe any of that crap ever again. And I would always encourage people who were sick to go to the doctor. A doctor can heal you. I still have people in my life that, I'm sorry. Got distracted by my leg. I didn't tell you guys what that's all about. If God wants to heal me, I always say this to people who say, let me pray for you to be healed right now. It's like, God knows where I am. God knows what my needs are. I don't really have to say anything. If you look at the words of Jesus, it says, he knows your needs. So I'm not going to beg him to heal me. He knows where I am. If he wants to heal me, he can heal me. In the meantime, I'm taking my Lyrica. And that really blows their minds when you tell them that. They don't like it. The Robert Shinn types will argue with you and tell you that you don't have belief. You know something? I don't have belief in miracle healings any longer to that extent because I see people either weaponizing it or they are trying to collect money out of it. That's a big one. Hallelujah! Pass the collection plate. Let's get some money going up in here. So anytime somebody tries to ask you for money to do something like that, you just go, no, bless your heart, go on. So that was a big one. That was a huge one. That and them telling me that yoga was a sin. That was a big mistake to tell me because this day I still do some yoga. And they were saying, well, you chant demons' names. It's like, I've never chanted any names while I've been doing yoga. The lady whose yoga program I I have solid belief that Joel Osteen and those like him are just grifters with no morals. Oh Lord, don't say that name too loudly. My husband loves Joel Osteen. I can't stand him. I think he's a grifter. I think he's right up there with Uni Rock and everybody else that's grifting right now. And I did get a laugh out of him though when he marched with Black Lives Matter in Houston, because I've never seen a man look so uncomfortable in my entire life to be walking around with a bunch of black guys. I thought it was a good step forward for him, but he needs to do more. He just does. He needs to put his money where his mouth is. The only thing positive I can say about Osteen is at least he is positive. It's a positive message. That's what people want to hear. And they believe in miraculous healing too. One of my friends, like I said, she had a car accident recently and broke her sternum, a bunch of ribs. She broke her ankle and her hip. And she's undergoing a lot of different surgeries and things now. And it's been hard for me watching this because they're all still involved in that. And I'm seeing people that are saying these evangelical buzzwords and phrases. And I'm just wanting to reach out and smack a few people around because whenever they start that around me, I just want to react very badly. And I don't really like that. I don't like when people mouth evangelical platitudes around me. It makes me want to hurl. I heard that Joel Osteen doesn't take a salary from the church because he makes his money from his books. I've heard that too, American Princess. My husband hollers that one at me when I say something bad about Joel. And I think that's true, but he lives in a multi-million-dollar house. He doesn't seem like, I don't know, there's some things to me that seem kind of squishy. Yeah. And I had to laugh. I've seen Joel Osteen games. There's all kinds of everything you can think of. They're flashcards. So you can tell yourself all those positive affirmations every day. Has anybody seen that? There was a Saturday Night Live skit where the guy was, what was he doing? He was giving himself positive affirmations. You're smart, you're beautiful, and everybody likes you, sort of thing. And there's nothing wrong with having a positive attitude, but I guess for me, I'm too much of a realist, a hardcore realist. And I appreciate people that truck in honesty and say real things. Stuart Smalley, that's it. Exactly. Exactly. And it's one thing to be positive, it's another thing not to operate in reality. I had a girlfriend a couple of weeks ago was very offended with me because she told me a bunch of stuff that was going on in her life. And I was just like, have you tried this? Have you done this? And she was not appreciative of that. She said, you were being all prosaic and I really needed sympathy. And I was like, well, I can't read your mind. I freely admit I can't read your mind. If you need a little sympathy, you need to say, ouch, you're being mighty hard on me. I really wanted sympathy. And I might say, okay, I'll give you a little sympathy. But most of the time, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be the person saying, hey, did you try this yet? How about this? Did you think about that? Because I believe in that. I believe in doing that. I believe in helping people. And patting somebody on the back and giving them sympathy for everything is not a good idea. It just isn't, because that's how we get KJs. And I was telling somebody earlier tonight, they were asking me about her. I said, she could never pick up on when I was being sarcastic. She had no idea. She could not read sarcasm. And sadly, I am quite sarcastic many times. So for her to take what I was saying as a gospel truth is actually kind of funny. I don't get it. I do not get it. If I'm over here rolling my eyes, I'm not thinking what you're saying is a good idea. I frequently laugh, but sometimes at others. I get the biggest kick living here among these stupid millionaires because I get to see all kinds of bizarre things that are done in the name of money. And no doubt about it, it is money. I went to a party the other night where a lot of them were congregating because one of them was leaving and we were having a goodbye party. And I heard so many absurd things that my husband said, I came home just combination laughing and in shock because there was some crazy stuff going on. And I'm not just talking about the people that are rabid anti-vaxxers, because they had those that were there too. Saying, COVID's not real. I said, well, gee whiz, when I was sick 3 weeks ago, and they were making me trudge back and forth to the clinic so they could listen to my lungs and my heart every day. Don't tell me they're mistaken. Maybe they were just messing with me and charging me all that money to do all that shit. I don't know. So I had a big laugh about that. Oh, and one last Tiger King thing. They brought in a psychic. Don Lewis's family brought in a psychic to find his body, and that was an interesting thing. Really strange. I got the kind of a laugh kick out of that too. One day soon, I'll have to explain what I think about the paranormal, because I definitely have thoughts. John, that's what I said, but I said it pretty nicely. I tried to, because this is somebody that I want to stay on friendly terms with. I'm not going to say good terms because clearly he's stupid. He's open stay on some things. And he's one of the people that is just all into the end times. And they've been studying the end times at the church he goes to for 2.5 years now. I'm kind of like, you guys have been verklimping over the end of the world as you know it so long that your verklimping is going to be longer than the actual end times. They study it. One of them studies scripture 4 hours a day, every day, to see when the date is, when it's starting. And that bothers me about American Christianity. So many of them only support Israel because they want to see war in the Middle East. Because if war in the Middle East happens and Israel gets wiped off the map, then Jesus comes back. So that is their whole motivation for loving Israel. Tell him that COVID is really the horseman of the plague. I'll have to think about that one too, how to phrase that. I'll have to. I like the guy. And he said, talking about how much weed he smoked. And I was like, how do you square that with your anti-vaxxing, rah-rah, Jesus? Here comes end times crap. I would love to know. I want to pick his brain for several hours someday. Maybe I'll interview him for the book. That might be a good idea. And I like the guy, I like his wife. They're really nice Canadians. They're wealthy as hell for some airport they owned up in northern Canada somewhere. And it was an interesting conversation. And then my friend Robert, who I dearly love, was telling me he's building a still. He's going to start making moonshine here. And I said, did you check to see what the laws are first? You can't just start making moonshine because you feel like it. My grandfather used to do that. My Irish grandfather made moonshine as for himself. You just don't do that. It's just crazy. I said, I get the biggest kick out of some of the people here. They just make me laugh, some of the gringos that move here. Oh, so I am going to go ahead and go. I need to go to bed. I need to just keep laughing at the stupidity. and keep editing my book. 3 or 4 days ago, I was super bummed out because I lost a huge edit. Ask him if it's his Uncle Jesse's recipe. The Dukes of Hazzard. John, this is where it's interesting. This guy comes from Virginia too, not far from where we lived. And let me tell you, we had legal moonshiners where we were. They had huge moonshine distilleries. So he's thinking he wants to try his hand at that. Okay, you guys, have a good evening. I'm going to go to bed. I got to make my bed. I hate doing that. I rouse the cat off the bed. See you guys later.